Today on Q&J, who's smarter, me or Spock my dog? The results will surprise you.
Q and J.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Q&J. I promised that I'd have two in a month, and I'm keeping my promise, people. I'm keeping my promise. So this was pre-filmed a couple days in advance, just to let you know, because I'm going to be at Gen Con, this week. So I'm filming it now. So if you left your comments later in the week, please leave them again on this video so that I can answer them in the future video. So good stuff there. So we'll start off with one question that was left on my previous video after I unfortunately uploaded my... So it was on my 2 videos ago, before I uploaded my previous video. Basically, it was asking about... The question was asking, what do you need for the basics of airbrushing? If you're just getting into airbrushing, what are the first things you need, and then so forth. So there's levels of what you need. So the first thing, obviously, you need an airbrush, you need a hose, and you need an air source. It could be a compressor, it could be a cheap hobby compressor, it could be a nice decent compressor. I've seen some people use like automotive compressors, which could be dangerous. Chung from WGC just uses an air tank, So you just need an air source, hose, and airbrush itself. Cool. Then, on top of that, you would need airbrush paints or airbrush thinner to thin down paints so you can use them in your airbrush, because that way you have paints to use. Cleaner, which could be your basic non-ammonium Windex or specific cleaner for an airbrush, and water. Those are the first things that you would need. Other things you might need: masking tape or silly putty, something to mask off surfaces. Some varnish. I always recommend varnishing throughout airbrushing. Yeah, those are the things basically. Stencils you could get. You could get some, maybe like one of those cool, I forget what they're called. They shake, like ultrasonic shakers that you use for diamonds. Apparently people love them for airbrushes. And those are what basically you need for airbrushing. So thank you very much for your question. I'm sorry I didn't get to it. It's just because I filmed the previous video before, I filmed the video before you put up the comment, essentially. So sorry about that. So now we'll start on this week's questions. So the first question comes from Tim Whitehead. Tim Whitehead says, I have a question for you. Why you no paint Age of Sigmar miniatures? I think that's the kind of voice that he was using. I could be wrong. The reason is, number one, I really don't have the money right now. The time or the money. Gen Con is going to be expensive because conventions are. And yeah, I just don't have the money, unfortunately, to buy Age of Sigmar. Plus, I don't play Age of Sigmar. I'm not a fantasy player. I was debating on it when it first came out because it could be a way to, have fun, learn a new game, get some views. But I decided not to. The miniatures are amazing. I do agree on that. And maybe I should pick up some and do some tutorials on them or something. But yeah, just unfortunately don't have the time or the money at the moment. Maybe in the near future. We'll see. But thank you very much for your question, Tim Whitehead. Orderly Thought says, thanks, Jay. You're welcome, Orderly Thought. Easy question. Matthew McCormick says, wait, why can't you take Exarchs in a Wave Serpent? Sorry, that was I didn't convey it well in my previous video. There's a debate online. Let's just say that. There's a debate. Because the formation requires every unit in the formation to take an Exarch. And basically what people are saying for rules as written kind of thing is that since a Wave Serpent cannot take an Exarch as an upgrade, you can't take a Wave Serpent as part of that formation. And therefore the Wave Serpent does not gain the +1 ballistic skill bonus in the formation that we were referring to. However, other people say it's just, it's a purchased upgrade, so it should apply. It's a purchased dedicated transport, so it should apply. That's the debate. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. And I addressed that as well in the comments. Joseph Foster says, no one ever remembers Dark Eldar. I know, I forgot Dark Eldar. But they're a 7th edition Codex. Yeah. Aren't they? They're 6th or 7th, but I'm pretty sure they're 7th. Maybe they're 6th? I think they're 7th. Yeah, Dark Eldar are 7th. I think so. Or are they? Let's look it up right now. Easy way to tell is when did I do the Codex review? Did I do it before or after last June? Let's see. Is it... It's a 7th edition, I'm pretty sure. I did forget it, though. I'm sorry. So let's look up videos. I think it was about 120 videos ago. Could even be more. Skatari. Wow. I put up 120 videos since Adepticon. Necrons. Let's see how long ago this was. I'm only in January. I put up a lot of videos this year. Wow. Blood Angels. That was a fun Codex review. Wow. It's been a lot of videos. I guess I've been a busy beaver. Yeah, it was October. It's a 7th edition. Yeah, okay, good. I forgot October. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I forgot Dark Eldar. And then Matthew McCormick says, who? And then Cosmic Soybean says, I would love to field them more, but I want to use my Trueborn with D-Lances. And I can't since they don't supply enough for even a single Trueborn squad per pack. And they're like $10 for me. Probably £10 to buy them online. Sometimes more. Wow. That is crazy. Yeah, that's the problem with some Games Workshop products is that you don't get enough guns for what you want to do and what you can potentially do. You know, my biggest annoyance when I was an orc collector, I don't buy many orcs anymore. I obviously have an orc army, but when I was building my orc army was the Burna Boys / Ludas kit, because you only get 4 guns, and then you have to build a mech, and you're like, I don't want a mech, I want 5 Ludas or 5 Burnas. Silly. Aaron Weeks says Grey Knights is 6th edition Codex, isn't it? No, 7th edition. It was one of the first 7th edition codices. And and Grand Adam Thon says 7th, August 2014. Yeah, 7th edition was last early summer, like May. I think it was May or June. So any Codex after that, 7th edition. Aaron Weeks is not sure if this is the right place to post a Q&J. Let's see. But here it goes. If orcs were re-released, how do you think they could fix them? Orcs, in my opinion, have always been weak compared to other armies. First of all, fix mob rule. Mob rule, it was a huge nerf to orcs. So rather than mob rule, becoming fearless at 11 boys and so forth, because the Codex, let's face it, the Codex is designed for close combat and for large mobs of boys. So, easy way to fix that, bring mob rule, the old mob rule back. Fearless after 11 boys, leadership between 7 and 10 becomes their leadership. Done. Simple way of fixing them, because you lose so many boys stupidly through mob rule, I find. So you basically can't take intermediate squads. You take small squads and just sacrifice them. Don't care if they pass mob rule. Or you take giant squads. And a lot of squads, it's not even worth taking a knob, because you're going to lose the knob quickly. A squad of 11 boys, you lose 3 of them. You take a leadership test, you probably fail, or it's like 50-50 failing. You're less than 10 models, so, mob rule, huge. Number 2, Cyborg. Huge. One of the most annoying nerfs for the Orc Codex was Cyborg. Why is it a 6-up feel no pain? That's useless. It used to be a 5-up invulnerable save. Huge. Especially in close combat, where orcs are designed to be. You need some survivability, not a 6-up armor save. Like almost every model in the entire Codex only has access to, at best, a 4-up armor save. There's only a few models that have 2-ups, and very few that have 3-ups. So, yeah, almost the entire Codex is just you hit them and they fall apart. So an invul is huge. So bring back the old Cyborg. And then the final one is, I would say, move Flash Gits to elites, because their guns are not high strength enough, and they're only random AP. So I would say they're a perfect elite slot, not a heavy support slot, because like Ludas and Def roll, like And the battle wagons and the killicans and the def dreads, they all belong in the heavies. The one part of the Codex that didn't make sense to me was flash kits. They should have been moved in exchange for the loot. I understood why looters were moved to heavy. They do have heavy guns, but the loot, I think the flash kits should be moved to elites. So thank you very much for your comment, Aaron Week. Black Tom. Oh, hey, Black Tom. Says, by giving them back the invul saves. Exactly. Can't agree with you more, Black Tom. But they will not be released anytime soon, as they are 7th Ed Codex. No, they're 6th Ed. Aren't they? No, they're 7th. They're definitely 7th. You're right, Black Tom. Yeah, they're 7th Ed Codex. So they're not going to be released anytime soon. They're going to finish out the 6th edition codices first. So probably in a couple of years. Problem is, they were one of the first 7th Ed codices. Yep. I think Folk and GW are doing a great job and having a lot of fun making up new formations and rules, but it shows orcs were one of the first, and at the time, the only formation they could think of was the Green Tide. So Green Tide is what they get. Mm-hmm. Yep. Very good point, Black Tom. Up next, we have House of Geek. Hey Jay, Matt here from Derbyshire. I have 2 questions, if that's okay. So is that 3 questions then? Is that okay? Is the first question? You're breaking my brain. Questionception. So first question. Second question technically. I've recently started my own channel and I was looking for tips to increase my subs. Any tips would be great. Number 1. The ways to increase your subs, not only through leaving comments, is interacting with other YouTubers. If you can interact with other YouTubers, like what I'm doing with you right now, it gets your name out there. So the first thing, if you're a smaller channel, interact with other YouTubers. You could take advantage of mini wargaming, put your stuff on there. I find that if you're not a partner, you may want to try to get partnership, because if you're not a partner, it goes so quickly because people post so many videos on mini wargaming. Or you could post your videos on other channels like Daka. Other websites. That's the first way of getting more subs. Second, producing content. It comes down to the content a lot of the time. I'm not a sub for sub kind of guy. I don't recommend that kind of stuff. Produce content that you love. Produce content that you love to make. And produce content that other people will love. And then you'll be happy, What I always recommend to people is don't just try to mimic other stuff. Always try to improve, even if it's in the slightest way. So if you do battle reports, find your own spin or a way to improve what you feel is the norm of battle reports, because that'll bring people to you. If you do painting tutorials, same thing. If you bring other content, the more creative you are, the better you'll be. Other thing is you can take advantage of waves of popularity. For example, right now, Age of Sigmar is huge. If you put up an Age of Sigmar review or an Age of Sigmar battle report within the first couple weeks, you got a huge amount of views, which probably led to more subscribers. So taking advantage of the waves of popularity. Like Privateer Press products, they're always popularity. I find like 40K and Fantasy are the ones that really fluctuate. 40K is still really popular right now, but what you'll find is certain armies will be more popular than others based on which ones were released recently. I'm doing Space Marines right now. Space Marines are way more popular for battle reports than a couple other the older armies, So that's a way. If you do battle reports, another thing is do armies that no one else does. Yeah. But any tips would be great. As I said, interact with other people, Facebook, media. Oop, knocked over my computer. And by interacting with other YouTubers like me, you put your name out there, and by making content. That's the way it always comes down to the content to me. So I hope that helps. Second question. A few weeks ago, I won a Forge World Reaver Titan at the Forge World Open Day here in OK. Wow. That's awesome. But it's still sat on my desk. I'm a bit intimidated about the model and have never done a model this big. Any tips for constructing it, painting it? Thanks, Jay. Keep up the good work. For constructing it, take your time. Take your time, clean up the pieces. If it's a Reaver Titan, you want to take your time, make it look as awesome as possible. Take your time, clean it, clean the mold lines, wash it, do everything in preparation. So that way it is not There's nothing. You don't want your awesome Titan to be ruined by some old lines. First of all, you may need to pin it depending on the parts. Most of the Reaver Titans I've seen them go together really nicely, but you may want to decide ahead of time if you're going to magnetize it or pin it. That's a huge consideration because depending on that, you want to prepare different ways. Maybe get some magnets, maybe get some large pins. And as far as painting goes, airbrush. Airbrushes save huge amounts of time and produce unbelievable, unparalleled results on these things. Airbrush. I used an airbrush on my Imperial Knights, and I love it. It saved me so much time, produced beautiful results, no brush strokes showing. Airbrush. I cannot emphasize that enough. But take your time. It can be really overwhelming, so make this a side project. Work on other things, but build it as you go. Spend a little time each day building it, and that way you don't get overwhelmed by the amount of pieces. And I also recommend, usually with these things, there probably have instructions with them, but if not, start with the core of the body. Christopher Tucker, another good suggestion, says, save some money and pay someone to make it for you. Well, at least, yeah, save some time, for sure. Christopher Tucker says, Che, how can you say the Space Wolf and Blood Angel got updated? They got royally shafted by GW. Well, I said they got updated. They got 7th edition codices. That's that. They got 7th edition codices, and as I said in my previous video, what tends to happen, what I find with my experience with Games Workshop is any Space Marine codex that comes out before Vanilla Marines kind of gets shafted because Vanilla Marines are the game changer, and then everything after that gets reflected. Last time it was the blood. When Vanilla Marines Codex came out, they were one of the first. But then in 6th edition, Dark Angels came out before Vanilla Marines, got screwed, and in this edition it was kind of Blood Angels and a bit of Space Wolves as well. Space Wolves are still pretty competitive with some of their builds though over Blood Angels. They were royally shafted by GW. New weapon skill, ballistical 4 scouts for same points, 4 attack dreadnoughts, squadron tanks with great squad bonuses. The Vindicator one is great. I completely agree. Amazing Decurion formation style, and OFC still getting access to all the great toys. Sense, Thunderfire cannons, Storm Talons. GW, it seems, really dislike us Blood Angel players. And my 15,000 Blood Angel army is now having to be played as Red Marines to stand any chance. Very annoyed at GW. At least my Necrons are strong. Yeah, Necrons are still strong. Yeah. Yeah. So I did say they got 7th edition codices. That's an update, right? It wasn't they got updated after the games were after the vanilla codex. As I said, Chris Tucker. Yeah, and as I did say this in my previous video, anything that happens before the Vanilla Marines usually gets screwed over relative to Vanilla Marines. And it's unfortunate. I completely share in your pain. I was a Dark Angel player in 6th edition. Yeah. Mini Warzone says, great Q&J as always. Question, do you ever run into storage problems with all your hobby-related stuff? Totally. And do you end up having to rearrange things, i.e. room layout, etc.? Thank you for your great content. Thank you very much for your comment and your question, Mini Warzone. So, yeah, I run into it. I usually bounce stuff between my workshop and my house. And a lot of the time, I don't really have to rearrange rooms, but I have to rearrange what's in the rooms. Yeah, but I definitely do. I have several shelves set up in my workshop, and I have a bunch of storage in the house. So I'm not completely maxed out yet, but sometimes I have to feng shui stuff, for sure. Let me see. Sorry, just going through time here. Grand Adam Thrawn says, a question for you, sir. What is your opinion on standard Dreadnought rules in different Adeptus Astartes codices? Space Wolf 1, August 24th, 100 points. With smoke, no special rules. 2 attacks. Grey Knights 1, August 2014, 125 points. Psychic special rule, 2 attacks. Blood Angels 1, December, 100 points. Furious Charge, 2 attacks. Space Marine 1, 100 points. Chapter Tactics, 4 attacks. I know. In Dark Angel 1, 100 points, Grim Resolve, 4 attacks. It's crazy. And as I went over the previous one, this might be the name of the video, is Space Marines. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But each one gets their own pro and con, as you can see. Like, they're all 100 points. To me, I thought it was weird that the Space Wolves blank Dreadnought wasn't a strong one. But the Space Wolves also got, like, the Murder Fang. And the thing is with the Space Wolves Codex it wasn't the base Dreadnought that was really being pushed by the Codex. It was the other Dreadnoughts. There's some really strong ones. And it's not the base. So in this particular case, that's why they would not be the strongest one there. Versus, like, armies like, Grey Knights, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Space Marines only get one Dreadnought. Other than, the Ironclad and the Venerable. But you can make anyone venerable, right? So Grey Knights, the Psychic Powers, they got nerfed. I don't really use the Grey Knights Dreadnought anymore because the Cyphelman was the popular one due to the fact you could take Psy-Ammo. One Psy-Ammo was removed. People haven't been really taking the Grey Knights Dreadnought anymore. Strength 8 was so much better than Strength 7 autocannons. Blood Angels, to me the Blood Angels should have gotten more attacks. Or the biggest problem was the Furiosos got really nerfed because now they got Shred. If you take the Talons as opposed, like Shred, Big Whoop, you're wounded on 2s anyway. And it used to be that, you get so many more attacks. They should have kept that in. Or at least maybe one more round of attacks for every unsaved wound. And then Space Marines and Dark Angels are the same one, right? Their chapter tactics is Grim Resolve for Dark Angels. And 4 attacks is nuts. And you can take them in squadrons. That's, to me, the biggest... that's the biggest thing to me, is squadrons. I faced a squadron recently. It'll be in a battle report in the next few weeks. I'm going to start doing battle reports again next week. And the squadron is nuts. To face a squadron is nuts, because if they get the charge, they get 5 attacks each. It's nuts with base Dreadnoughts. So I think the squadron is the biggest thing, and the 4 attacks is huge too. So, do you think it's fair that Space Wolves, Grey Knights, and Blood Angels have less attacks for the same amount of points? No. Space Wolves doesn't even seem to have his chapter tactics. And do you believe this should be somehow changed by GW releasing a simple FAQ, just like other companies do? Yes. I think they should. Will they? No. They won't. Because that's what they do, right? Certain armies get preferred. And that's kind of the GW way. They never had balance across codices for Space Marines or across all the codices. They've never had balance, right? And they won't. So all you can say is that, and unfortunately, they're all updated as well. They're all 7th edition codices. Grey Knights, Space Wolves, they're all 7th edition codices. So they're not getting updated anytime soon, unfortunately. But that's what you can unfortunately do. You play your Blood Angels as Red Marines. That's unfortunate. But I don't think it'll happen. That's the thing with Games Workshop. Everything it changes the game. The vanilla codex. You want your codex to come out after that vanilla codex. And if it doesn't, it really sucks. Grand Adam Thon once again says, second question. Are you afraid of the constant power creep, new Eldar and Space Marines primarily? Can this make people leave 40k? I'm not afraid of it. I don't play competitively. I play for fun. So in that particular perspective, I don't fear it myself. But as you mentioned, your second question of this part, can it make people leave 40k? Yes. If you are a power player, my friends used to be power players. The guys who got me back into 40k were power players. And they like to keep on top of the codices. And it broke their brains. Not only codex creep, the speed of the codices started coming out and the rules changing. It couldn't keep up with the meta, and they left 40k. So the competitive players will be weeded out depending on, or the competitive players will just jump to really competitive armies. Necrons, Eldar, Space Marines. So, in some ways, Tau still. Not as much. But that's about it. It's, yeah. So it could potentially, for sure, have a problem is, like, especially if you come back to the game and you face an opponent with, like, a double Wraith Knight list or triple Wraith Knight list, they'll crush you, and then you might get discouraged. But thank you very much for your questions. Joshua Dory says, a suggestion for your Crimson Fist player. If you're going to do Pedro at 1500, do combine arms. Okay. Take first company formation with Stern Guard and Rhinos, a bunch of scouts with bolters for troops, 10 to 15 mans, 10 and 5 man squads, some IS gun or LS gun storms, land speeder storms, a couple of drop pods in FA, fast attack, a couple of dev squads with las cannons, maybe an Inquisitor if you got the points. You make use of all the special rules, stay mobile, and lots of objectives secured. Miss out on doctrines, but you have bolter drill anyway. Lose out on devastator doctrines is the worst of that. Yeah. Very good point. Very much for your comment, Joshua Dory. Eric's Coins says, hi Jay. Hi Eric. Will you make an AOS bat rep? Are you pure 40k? Thanks for your Q&Js, mate. Maybe. Not in the near future. I don't see myself doing Age of Sigmar. There's no Age of Sigmar players. There's not a lot of Age of Sigmar players in the area. To be fair, it's 40k. So I'm at the mercy of my meta, and 40k is still my thing. So maybe. But odds are not that likely. Maybe. No promises. I'm not pure 40k. I do some War Machine and Hordes. But most of them end up in the Warp. But I do some War Machine and Hordes battle reports as well. But thank you very much for your question. Quiet One says, hi Jay. Do you see use for Mozgrok's Boss Boys as a means of getting more HQs into an orc list? Gives D3 units outflank. Plus this is a formation? Yeah. Gives D3 units outflank plus 1 to seize the initiatives. Yes, it does. I faced Mozgrok recently. I wonder if it's in a battle report. I don't remember. Only issue is that you lose any chance of the WA as one of your big mechs must be your warlord. That's true. Is there a use for the Blitz Brigade? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that one. I don't see many uses in most normal games. I noticed there is a Warcopter in IA8 as a 10 model transport with 2 guns, 65 points, as they may be worth taking over trucks as they bring their own Jing safe. That's true. That's a good point. So possibly, as I said, Mozgrok, you're referring to all Imperial armor. And you can take him. You just sacrifice. You can't ever have a wall. But it's a cool thing. I really love the fact that he gives outflank. So you can get some really nasty things outflanking and +1 to seize the initiative. So, and he's a pretty cool HQ. Has some fluff. I don't really use a lot of Imperial armor other than my Grot tanks. My Grot tanks are awesome. So, but thank you very much for your question, Quiet One. Possibly. I could see him as being... I would totally use him. As long as because most of my lists don't rely on the wall. So I'd be okay. But if you're an army relying on it, like Green Tide, may not be worth taking. Anthony Paoli. Oops. Anthony... Oop, it closed. Let me reopen this for a second. Whoa. It says, howdy, Jay. Pauli. I guess Pauli, yeah. Soft of behind-the-scenes question. Sort of, I'm guessing. Sort of behind-the-scenes question. That's also a sort of tip. But in Painting with Jay and some tutorial videos, you frequently mention that the Peterborough summers are very humid. Yes. And that this causes drying times of things like shades, washes to impede your progress. Yes. Have you considered getting a cheap dehumidifier? Yes. And that's a simple fix I really should do. To be honest, very good point, Anthony Pauli. I really should. And just stick it in my workshop. Yeah. I always remind myself, but I never do. But it's a very good point. Jasper Larson says, hi Jay, I have some cues for you. Number 1, when do you change your old brush for a new one? What do you look for? When your brush can't hold its shape anymore. I do keep mine for a really long time, but I don't really throw them out ever. I just downgrade them. Like I have a hierarchy of brushes. And it'll be, it goes from like a detail brush, then it'll maybe a basing brush, and then a dry brush, then by basing I mean like base coating brush, then a dry brush, and then a basing brush. When it can't hold its shape anymore, losing its bristles, that's what I look for. So when do I change? Just that. Whenever they can't, do with their purpose, I downgrade them to another purpose. Would you consider painting a tactical marine from each chapter you feel like? Possibly. I've done a few. I know you have painted characters from different chapters, but they have a lot of bling. That's true. I'm more interested in the colors of the armor and how to get the result. Like how to paint a Space Wolf armor in the color of a Thunderclad. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I would consider that actually for future videos. Maybe as Miniature Painting 101. I'm actually covering Eldar Craft World color schemes right now for Miniature Painting 101. Would you consider a face-off between the chapter masters? Lord of Wars of Space Marines. Totally. I think Drago, well, he's not a chapter master though. But yeah, definitely. I have Steel Legion, Space Wolves, and Grey Knights. I'm painting them to fit a theme of the first Armageddon War. I'm thinking of having my Wolves come on via drop pods and my Grey Knights via flyers from Forge World. What do you think? Does this fit the theme? Yeah. It'd be pretty competitive too. Depends on which Forge World flyers specifically you're using. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I just need to know which ones. But yeah, it definitely could fit the theme. Space Wolves are cool. And it makes sense for Armageddon. Black Tom says, hi, I guess this might be more of a discussion or opinion than an actual question. No problem. To start out, I have to point out that Orcs and Nids are 7th edition codices. Yes. I see the problem is that they were some of the first, true. So GW was taking baby steps then, and Codex creep just happened naturally as they discovered how much they could do with the formations. Heck, did Nids even get a formation or Lord of War? No. No, Swarm Lord should have been upgraded. Is there more? So, as a solutions-oriented guy, I see 4 choices. Number 1, release new 7th Ed codices. I can't read, unfortunately, the whole comment because this is a very long paragraph. But thank you very much for your paragraph, Black Tom. I'm going to read a summary of each part. So either re-release the 7th Ed codices. You can massive updates on the FAQ, Black Library, errata section. That's a very good point as well. They could easily do that. If there are different books, add them into the army page or make the book or separate entry for the errata, including links to Forge World. Yeah, they did this for a couple of things for Tyranids. 3, supplements. That's what they've been doing a lot of things as well. This would create more books to sell, folks. Yep. This also means that they could still use the codices as they are, but with more rules and formations. And number 4, stay the course and wait till 8th comes out to reprint codices. This is also the cheapest option, but GW risks losing the players for those weaker codices in the meantime. Yes, they do. Also, one would hope that they do not feel like they need to make a new version of the game anytime soon, as I do not think the game can survive 3 editions in 5 years. I agree. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this, Black Tom. I agree, Black Tom. You have very good points. Those are essentially the 4 options, right? They could do nothing, which is probably going to happen. This is what they've done historically. Nothing for most codices. Absolutely nothing. But then they do the occasional release of models, like they've done for Tyranids, they've done for a couple other armies. Which those are more, as you suggested, the Black Library updates, where all of a sudden these new models come out which can change the meta, i.e. bringing back the drop pods or the kind of the new Quasi-Doom for Tyranids, And the Toxic Queen. I'm not a big fan of the Malice Scepter. But, yeah, those ways can rebalance the codices. Orcs may get something new before 8th edition. I don't see them getting much more love before 8th edition. And, yeah, I don't, unfortunately, release new 7th edition codices. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think, they could. They haven't really done much with the Black Library lately. And if they did that, I think it would be really cool if they all of a sudden, refixed Blood Angel, like if they aligned Blood Angels, Space Wolves with Vanilla Marines. That'd be really cool. Do I see them doing it? No. But it would be really awesome if they did. So thank you very much for your post, Black Tom. I completely agree. You very much have laid out the 4 choices: re-release codices or update. It wouldn't be very hard with the digital copies anyway. Massive updates, supplements, or stay the course. Very good points. Richard Gunn says, love the show. Jay was wondering a few things. 1, have you seen the Librarian Conclave for Dark Angels? I have. I talked about this in my last painting with Jay. I totally forgot about it in my Codex review. It's Tigurius's Librarian Conclave. So, as opposed to the Vanilla Marines where you can have 5, just normal librarians, you have to take not Tigurius. Oh my goodness, that's going to get me in trouble. Ezekiel. It's Ezekiel's Librarian Conclave. So you have to take Ezekiel, number 1. You have to take Ezekiel, and you can take up to, between 2 to 4 other librarians. The biggest downside is that it only ups it to 3 ups as opposed to 2 ups of the Vanilla Marines. But once again, I do agree, you could take the Librarian Conclave, and I'm going to try it out, for sure. I'm going to bring a Librarian's Conclave when I play Dark Angels in battle reports, for sure. But thank you very much for your comment. I just got to get Ezekiel. I don't have him. So, but as soon as I get Ezekiel, he'll be in there with Librarian's Conclave. Also, what do you think if scout bikers and scouts in smaller groups, especially with the Landspeeder Storm? I love them. Small squads of scouts is the way to go. Spread them around the board, make your opponent ignore them, they grab objectives, and they score so many points. How do you kit out either the bikes or the scouts in a speeder? I wondered if 5 scouts with cloaks and snipers could fire out of the fast skimmer. I think so. And if so, do you think that would make a good build for dealing with not only monsters, but hordes as well? Hordes, you'd have a little bit of an issue with snipers. Even monstrous creatures. Sniper rifles, to me, they're good. But there's some days that they just don't work for you, because it's only 4 ups to wound. And it could work. I think you're going to have a little more problems against hordes with large mounts of scouts. But against monstrous creatures, you shouldn't have a problem with sniper rifles. Well, I guess the bikes could... It depends on how many Landspeeder Storms you're bringing and bikes. A bunch of them could deal with the hordes, the little guys. You'd have a little bit of problem against monster creatures in close combat. Or hordes in close combat. You'd have to... yeah. So I think it'd be better against monster creatures, but from a distance. But hordes, you might have an issue. Andrew McCormick says... As you know, I've been an Eldar player for around 20 years. I do know that, Andrew McCormick. I recently played a game against the Dark Angels using 2 Wraith Knights. Dead Dark Angels. I tabled them in 3 turns. Okay. I saw that coming. Yeah, 2 Wraith Knights against Dark Angels. Dark Angels don't have much to answer that, other than large amounts of grav weapon spam. The next week, I played the same list against Demons to the same result. Tabling them in 2 turns. Yeah. I do not find this fun. Neither does my opponent. So I changed the list to not only 1 knight. That's good. 1 knight is competitive enough. 2 is, as you said, it's just put your models on the table, I'm going to knock them off. Especially the way you run your knights. Knights are, points for points, the deadliest thing in the game. There are very few things that can take down a Wraith Knight with reliableness. And you can bring in multiple of them and they're a monster creature and they feel no pain and it's just nasty. And took some Harlequins, which was fun. Excellent. Harlequins aren't the most competitive and they're a lot of fun to run. This is the first time I've ever found Eldar to be overpowered. 4th edition, I would argue 4th edition Wave Serpent spam was really powerful as well back in the day. Maybe not overpowered, but it was really powerful. I played Space Marines the next week and could barely compete. I won the game, but got very lucky with Maelstrom cards, always rolling maximum victory points. My question is this: the concept of OP, or broken, has been used a lot with Eldar for the past 2 editions. I truly enjoyed my game against Space Marines, but felt the free transports were a bit much, as I think he took 12 Razorbacks for free. Again? Yeah, it's the list I was always threatening, but I don't have the Razorbacks. The multiple free tactical doctrines and reasonable doctrines are also a bit much. Do you think that all codices will soon be overpowered to the level that they all work well together and are no longer broken? No. I don't, unfortunately. I'll talk about that in a second. Or is this just the favored codices? Eldar, Marines, which make the most money getting the special treatment. I think it's the preferred codices. I do. If you look historically, vanilla Marines have never had a terrible codex. Sometimes they don't have amazing codex, but they've never had a terrible codex. You know, Eldar, they've had multiple waves of really high love because they're Phil Kelly's baby, you know, and they're a great army. I have nothing against Eldar, but I feel that Eldar have always had consistently good codices, maybe not top tier, but 4th edition Wave Serpent Span was extremely powerful. 5th edition they had some troubles, but then 6th and 7th super strong, super strong. And I still feel that they're the strongest army in the game. Necrons are now feeling their love. Orcs have had some competitive builds as well, as have Tyranids. Probably both 4th edition, and ever since then they haven't been getting a lot of love. I don't think so. I think there's going to be an imbalance. I think the imbalance, there's too many codices and too many rules to keep balanced. I think there's always going to be an imbalance. But that's okay. We play the game. I play the game for fun. I love the game. And I'll play regardless. I play orcs. I play Canwall orcs, you know? I play because I love the game. And you play Eldar. And you've been playing Eldar for 25 years. So you've been playing through the ups and downs. You're not a bandwagon jumper or anything. But you gotta see, as you learned, if you bring Double Wraith Knight, you're just asking your opponent to walk away because Double Wraith Knight will just destroy everything. You know? People, the weird thing is, people have this weird preconceived notion about Imperial Knight armies. I find that people, once you put an Imperial Knight army on the table, they don't want to play it because they're like, Imperial Knights, I don't want to face that. But the problem is Eldar have the Wraith Knight, which is a cheaper and in many ways better option. In most ways better option. And you can bring multiple Wraith Knights in a list, and it's in a normal list, and people don't ever, you know, it's one of those things that, yeah. So the key is, if you're playing in a friendly environment, bring a more friendly list, but I don't ever feel that it's going to be perfectly balanced. Sorry, there's a second question as well. Eldar work great, also I have another question, he says. Eldar work great alone, as do Dark Eldar, but Harleys need to be allied to be competitive. I'm trying to think of a good Craft World Harley. Dark Kin combined list. Suggestions? Not really, unfortunately. I don't use Harlequins, or I wouldn't know who to ally them with, unfortunately. But for your list, the thing is with Harleys is you can... The cool thing about Harlequins is that they're only close combat oriented. And the rest of Dark Eldar... Like, there's so many Dark Eldar options that... Even for the Eldar as well. There's so many Dark Eldar options that are shooty. So they'll work very well with most combinations with Harlequins. Because... You know, Harlequins are not going to be the one that your opponent focuses on. They're going to focus on the big, shooty, baddie things in the back. And Harlequins can kind of fly under the radar now because, you know, on bikes they're pretty fun. The Harlequin bikes are actually really fun. They might draw some attention, but Harlequins just by themselves won't really be the target priority of your opponent, I don't think. But thank you very much, as always, Andrew McCormick. But I agree with your points. You know, as I said, it's playing to the environment. If you're in a competitive environment, bring Double Wraith Knight in a tournament, you'll win. If you're in a fun environment, try with none. Bring some theme lists. That's where a lot of the fun lies. Fluff is fun. But just know your opponent. You know, and again, if your opponent is a very competitive player, bring 12 extra Razorbacks. You can bring that Double Wraith Knight to have fun and balance the game. Mm-hmm. Oh, Andrew McCormick says again, hi, second question. Who is the new King of Psychic? My argument would be... Tigurius. I don't mean mastery level or abundance, but rather the quality of their army-specific psychic powers. I'd say Tigurius. Here's my reasoning. Okay, number one, Tigurius has access to pretty much all the psychic powers, right? That aren't Eldar, Tyranid, you know, army-specific ones. Number two, you can combine him with 4 other librarians in a librarian conclave, giving him, like, you know, you can give him 4 level 2 librarians, making him like equivalent of knowing like 12 psychic powers. And he rerolls to cast, and he casts on 2-ups if you get him within 12 inches of 2 other psychers. So there is no one in the game that can cast, you know, you roll your dice, and if you roll a 6, you get 18 dice, you can cast, like, it's insane. I've done the math. You can cast, like, 9 psychic powers, 10 psychic powers out of your 11 that you know, and get away with it with Tigurius. I think he's the captain. I'm torn between Eldar and Harlequins, although the new Dark Angel powers are pretty nice. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Oh, sorry, the quality of army-specific psychic powers. So that was my psychic in general. I misread your question. I'm sorry, Andrew McCormick. Eldar. Dark Angel ones are really cool. Yeah. Grey Knights. Grey Knights. Yeah, I'd say Grey Knights, actually. As far as one army, best psychic powers, Grey Knights. Because the army-wide, they're all have psychers, right? So they're easier to cast. So I'd say Grey Knights have the best army-specific psychic powers. They have Sanctuary, which gives them +1 to their invulnerable saves, which is huge, right? You have Drago running around attached to a squad with a 2-up invulnerable save. They have the power to jump off the table and re-deep strike instantly, which is, again, huge. And Vortex of Doom, which I've had a lot of fun playing with in the past. Yeah. So, on top of that, their base ones are Hammer Hand, +2 strength, huge. I'd say Grey Knights. I'd argue Grey Knights over Eldar or Dark Angels. Grey Knights have a very strong set of psychic powers. Additionally, on that thought, should the Librarian formation be better than the Seer Council? Fluff-wise, Eldar are much more powerful psychers than Space Marines. Fluff-wise, no. But in the game, yes. Librarian Conclave is the most powerful psychic group in the game, bar none. Again, because you can have Tigurius casting all the psychic powers on 2-ups. It's just nuts. Very nuts. Very, very nuts. Yeah, but in Fluff-wise, no. Fluff-wise, Space Marines shouldn't be in the top 2 or in the top 3. You know, there are so many armies that are much more psyker heavy than Space Marines in the Fluff. And the final question, Amphibious 803 says, "Hi Jay, I'm still fairly new to the hobby. I started collecting and playing Tyranids just under 2 years ago. Cool. Here's my first question. What would be the best way to learn about armies that you have never played against? Number 1, Codex reviews and battle reports. Watch the media. Battle reports and Codex reviews. Battle reports first, because battle reports show you how things operate and what models are preferred over others, helping you learn the armies. You know, you can learn an entire army, but in a lot of codices, you won't see all the models on the table. Bless you. So definitely battle reports. Easiest thing. Battle reports are the easiest way for free. Otherwise, borrow codices. Go to your local store, and if they have a lot of time, the local stores have the codices open for free, and you can read them and learn the other armies as well, for sure. Other ways, DACA forums, any forum that you can read. Free media is easy, so forums, videos, by far. Mm-hmm. We've got a small but awesome group of players here. However, there are a lot of armies I've yet to the opportunity to play against. Yeah, battle reports and forums. Every other month or so, there's a tournament a few hours away. Excellent. They've been a lot of fun meeting and playing against new people. When playing against a new army at these tournaments, I usually learn as the game goes. Yes, you learn as you play and you see what they do. But I usually feel that I've played badly, and it would have made for a better game if I'm more familiar with your army. I'm also quite sure that I've annoyed a few people, constantly asking questions about their army and slowing down the game. I personally don't mind. If you ask a bunch of questions, I usually ask a lot of questions too. A lot of time, it's best to ask questions early in the game or before deployment. You know, when you're asking about their look at the list. What I like to do is, if you're unfamiliar with the army, look at their list and then ask them questions about their list. Usually they'll be quite eager to talk about their list at the beginning of the game when the game hasn't started yet. I still haven't had the chance to play against Orcs, Necrons, Dark Eldar, Chaos, Blood... Orcs? You haven't played against Orcs yet? What? Necrons, Dark Eldar, Chaos, Blood Angels or Dark Angels, and several of the codices. I've been watching more battle reports lately. I've learned a lot from them, but without being familiar with their rules, I still kind of lost from time to time. although I can prefer things. As I said, that's why the triple whammy would be battle reports, Codex reviews, because Codex reviews talk about the rules behind. Like, if you watch mine, I go in depth about the psychic powers, about the HQs, about what they have. And that will help you learn the background as well. And then forums as well. Although I can infer things. It's kind of funny, looking back. The first time I played Tau, I was under the impression his Riptides were armored walkers for the first half of the game. That happens a lot. The biggest misconceptions are the Riptides and the Wraith Knights. No, Riptides and Dreadnoughts are not walkers. They're monstrous creatures. But everyone thinks they're walkers because they are walkers. It's silly. It's second question. Could I get some feedback on some models I painted? Yes, for sure. I've been enjoying painting and I'm getting some better, but I still have a long ways to go. Your tutorials have been a lot of help. Thanks for the great content. For sure. Email me at j@jdidproductions.com. So j@jdidproductions.com, and I would love to answer to address your painting. Send me pictures, for sure. That's it. So that concludes another Painting with Jay. I really hope you guys enjoyed this Painting with Jay and Painting with Jay, Q&J. What am I smoking today? Ooh. It's really fun when I do this. It actually recognizes the face on my shirt. That concludes another Q&J. I really hope you enjoyed this Q&J. Leave comments in the comment section down below and more questions. And feel free to add to what I'm saying, disagree. Let's have a discussion, people. And in 2 weeks again, I will have another Q&J, I promise. So thank you as always for subscribing, for supporting my videos, for leaving comments, for being a part of the discussion, and helping each other out. I really do appreciate that. So thank you, everyone. Especially like today, Black Tom and Andrew McCormick. You guys left some awesome comments. And everyone else as well, but you guys left some great comments in there too. So thank you so much. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting.